If you'd like to help me make games, please consider donating to my Patreon. Links in the description. Hey guys, some gamer dude here. This is probably the hardest review I've done yet. Not only because KeyForge is a unique game, there is nothing really like it in terms of what it's commonly compared to, TCGs, but I also had a hard time forming my thoughts on KeyForge. Consequently, I ended up playing it much more than I usually would for a review, including buying more product on top of what I initially grabbed. So let's jump in, discuss what KeyForge is and how it plays. KeyForge is a game designed by Richard Garfield, the famed designer of Magic the Gathering, and published by Fantasy Flight Games. KeyForge is not a trading card game, but a unique deck game. A unique deck game is a new concept currently exclusive to KeyForge, wherein you don't build a deck or buy boosters, but the deck is randomized itself and can't be modified. Each deck contains 37 cards, including one character card with a name made up of randomized words, and a deck of 36 cards. These 36 cards are further broken down into 3 randomized houses, with 12 randomized cards each. These 3 houses come from a pool of 7 houses. Sanctum, a knight theme. Shadows, a thief theme. Diz, a demon theme. Untamed, a nature theme. Brobnar, a goblin theme. Logos, a sci-fi theme. And Mars, a 50s sci-fi theme. The third set, Worlds Collide, rotates out 2 of the houses, Sanctum and Mars, while introducing 2 new houses. The Sauron Republic, Roman dinosaurs, and Star Alliance, Fallout meets Star Trek. Each of the houses do have their own flavour mechanically, though much of it is comparable to Magic's colours of the same themes. Only ones that interact with mechanics unique to KeyForge feel unique. The cards seem to vary by place of production. All of the Call of Archon sets I've bought feel waxy, extremely high quality, as did the 2 decks in the Age of Ascension starter deck, but the individual Age decks were notably different. They have a gritty feeling to the texture, not smooth. I do like the waxy coating of the cards, however. They feel of such high quality. I feel safe playing them unsleeved and have been doing so. Yet to see any card get scuffs or chips. I do quite like the art too. Both the template and the art has a Hearthstone feel to it. It's bright and bouncy, with a lot of life to it. It's got personality for days. I think the juxtaposition of the 50s aliens and knights might turn people off. Logos and Mars do feel rather out of place, but it's explained in lore, and KeyForge is presented as a very light-hearted game. I'm pretty accepting of it, but could understand others disliking it. The goal of KeyForge is to open a vault on a planet called the Crucible. You open this vault by using 3 keys you forge using a resource called Amber. The moment you forge your 3rd key, you win. A game of KeyForge starts by both players placing their character card in front of them and shuffling their deck. Both players then decide who goes first. The player going first draws 7 cards, with the player going second drawing 6. Both players can mulligan their hand by shuffling it into their deck and drawing 1 less card. Each player can only mulligan once. From here, the turn player commences their turn. They choose 1 card and they get to play it or discard it. Creatures and artifacts stay in play and come out tapped, or as KeyForge calls it, exhausted. Action cards are analogous to sorcery cards. KeyForge does not have instant speed cards. You now move on and untap or ready your cards and conclude your turn. As the second player onwards, the turns are a bit different. You can play more than 1 card per turn, but only from one of your houses. You can only use cards on board from that house too. So say you pick Shadows. You're committed to Shadows for the entire turn. You can play, use, and discard any number of cards of your chosen house, and you get an additional step, the refill step, wherein after you've finished your activities and ready your cards, you refill your hand till you are holding 6 cards in hand. Further on into the game, turns get even more complexity. The resource we talked about, Amber, can be gained by playing cards with Amber icons, card effects, stealing, or reaping. At the beginning of your turn, if you have 6 amber or more, you can trade exactly 6 for 1 key, and only once per turn. If that's your 3rd key, you win. Secondly, creatures and artifacts become relevant. If you choose to commit to a house of creatures and artifacts you have in play, you can tap artifacts to use action abilities, while creatures can tap to use action abilities to reap, which gains you amber, or attack other creatures. Attacking is all board control here, not winning. Unlike Magic clones, but like Pokemon, damage doesn't go away naturally, not all of it anyway. Creatures have 2 stats, power and armor. Power is your unified combat stat, how much damage that creature deals and its life. Damage counters are placed on creatures when they take damage, and when the damage is as high or higher than their power, they die. Armor is a damage prevention mechanic. The armor must have its value reached in damage each turn before the creature in question can actually take damage. Unlike power, armor replenishes each turn. KeyForge is very interesting in that it can be approached in different ways. You can pick up a deck, play it out. If it's good and you like it, stick with it. You can buy decks till you hit the competitive deck you like. But I think it's best experienced by playing to the randomized nature of the game, as intended. This is either by sealed, going to tournaments and using what you get, or alternatively, what I do. Pull all the decks you have and make a random selection with no do-over. I think a lot of the appeal of KeyForge comes from adapting to what you get, getting different experiences with different decks. The game is meant to replicate the sealed formats of Magic's original era after all. I also think the gameplay is a bit more interesting than it lets on at first. Stealing, capturing, and removing amber, all different concepts with different implications, really spice up the gameplay. It can be a real struggle to get keys versus Shadow and Mars, who specialise in these types of mechanics. Mars especially can be quite obnoxious as it removes the amber from circulation, but that's part of the fun. It stops the game from essentially being solitaire. This, along with combat and destruction effects, are the only interaction you're getting, but it's enough. Where KeyForge really does shine is how you're ideally supposed to play. Make little moves, get some amber, clear your hand out of small amounts of cards. Then when you hit a nice beefy 3+ of the same house, go for a big burst turn. Clear your hand, gain field presence, do a ton of stuff, gain field advantage. The game really encourages these big swing turns, because after you do this, you can nudge with that house, using all the stuff you just put on board to reap, make actions, attack, all while saving for a nice big burst turn of another house. There is actually a fairly decent amount of strategy to playing your hand, and the burst turns by their very nature are fun. It's an explosion. It's spectacle without a real gimmick. The game promotes playing a few turns ahead rather than playing in the moment. I also do like that many turns, if you're left in a situation where attacking is disadvantageous or they don't have anything worth killing, you can just reap, gaining amber. It stops the game from being in a stalemate situation, as it can still be going even if nothing on board is engaging in combat. Your creatures are still working and being productive. I also like that some cards that are more situational just give amber, so you can use them for that sole purpose, making them not feel like a waste. I thought that the lack of resources would cause an issue, imbalanced gameplay, but KeyForge does have resources. It relates back to what I said about ideal gameplay, the incremental moves leading up to a big burst turn. The lack of a combat victory condition also leads into this. The game balances itself with the house choice and the gameplay essentially promoting ramping in an ebb and flow pattern. It's not the only game I've seen do this, but it's not apparent when first looking at KeyForge. I said at the beginning I found KeyForge hard to formulate my opinions on. Part of this is the nature of the game. Despite appearing to be a card game, with all the tokens and non-combat victory condition, it feels more like a hybrid between a board game and a card game. I'm not terribly big on board games. I'll play them, but generally not by my own volition. The length of gameplay also adds into this. When we first started, games took a very long time, around the 2-hour mark. Even now, after adjusting to the game, it goes for quite some time, about an hour. This means I can't get as many games in a short amount of time. So I've had to take more time to fully get used to KeyForge and consequently write this review. It also means games can become a bit tiresome. If I had any complaints, it's about the decks. For the randomized nature of the game, it doesn't feel as randomized as advertised. House frequency seems to vary by box. Certain houses appear rarer depending on the stock, certain combinations of houses turn up a lot, and even cards. For such large pools of cards within the sets, you see a fair few repeated again and again. Not massive amounts, but for such a large pool of cards, over 350 a set, it feels like you should see a wider variety of cards than you do. I don't think KeyForge is for everyone. It's a very unique game and the nature of it is a lot of the appeal. That focus on sealed and adapting is going to turn off a lot of people that either like deck building, brisker games, or playing very specific things. But I like what's on offer here. I really like the idea of adapting the lucky dip that I preserved with my play pattern. The gameplay itself is a lot of fun and fairly balanced. I like the look of the cards. I even like the big board game feel because it plays into some of my tastes. I think KeyForge really depends on you. If you like longer games, board game type feelings, and adapting to your cards, I would thoroughly recommend it. I think you will have a lot of fun. It's not even terribly expensive. The decks are only about 10 USD a pop, meaning that they are very affordable and depending on your play patterns won't go to waste. I recommend KeyForge, but be wary of your own taste. It might not give you what you want from it. This has been Some Gamer Dude, and thanks for watching.